Hello, my name's Ian, and I'm a Mac administrator. Okay. I first became addicted back in 2007 when I was given a predecessor of this MacBook and told, go and upgrade all the Macs that we look after, very small number, to Snow Leopard. And then we went into Lime and Mountain Lion, and my addiction grew. I could control Macs. Then I got worried when Apple released Mavericks and said, this is free, people can do it themselves. Help. Fortunately, support had moved to central IT, and everyone came to us for assistance. And so my addiction grew. I was able to do more and more. Anyway, let's get on with the talk. He says, I joined the OU back in 1986. Never left. Hoped I'd retire about 10 years' time. Computing then was very different. We had a smattering of personal computers, but most people had access to terminals and everything like that. I knew there were a few Macintosh computers around because my previous job was with an Apple dealer, and when the Mac came out in '84, the OU was one of the first customers we sold to. A bit about the Open University. We've been going since '69. Now, I don't know how many people know what they may have heard of the OU, but we don't know necessarily what we do. We started in '69. We're based in Milton Keynes. It's a nice green environment. We have offices around the UK. We did have 13. We're pruning back slightly. But what makes the OU different? Well, this is from our charter written back in '69. I'll let you read it. We were set up to use technology. In those days, television, radio. But in the background, we've always used computers. And I think that statement still holds true. We now use different technologies, but we're still pushing for modern technology use. A few facts and figures about us. We are the largest UK university. You don't have to have 3 A stars to come to the OU. You don't even have to have A levels to come to the OU. We have quite a wide range of students, of ages, abilities, and we still use the television, not necessarily for teaching purposes, but to get the message out about the OU and to use those programs within our teaching outside of television. What about computing at the OU? Many, many years ago we had 2 setups. One to do with academics and students, the other one to do with administrative. And then we joined them together because it made life easier and became this new title of IT. With my name, I am actually IT in IT. There we go. I like that. We look after, the computers we look after are just for academics and administrative staff. There are over 8,000 computers we look after, well over 500 servers. I forgot to get the actual numbers before I came here. Now, back in 2010, it was decided that we would optimize desktop usage. This means that we would really control what people did. This is only valid for Windows PCs, and this is what my colleagues told us they were after. Security hardening, central distribution of software and updates. And this thing down the bottom here, we had 3 flavors. Fully optimized, which means we controlled everything. Semi-autonomous, they had a little bit of admin access. And autonomous, which means we were outside of our control, they did their own thing. no matter which version they had, every single machine had to have an antivirus and had to have our NAC client installed, so we knew whether or not they were able to get onto the main network. This rollout of managing the Windows PCs, how do you put it, didn't go terribly well with the end users. I think it's fair to say it still doesn't go well with some of the people, but 7 years on, I think we're just about hacking it. Fortunately, I'm not that involved with that side of things. Anyway, having done that, they decided not to move on to Macs. Slight trepidation from the Mac user community. You ain't touching our Macs. Not that you did with the PCs. So we tried to learn the lessons from the PC build. We decided that the users would still retain admin rights, so they could install their own software. The IT security people said you have to have security hardening built in. For people to use the Macs, they had to be bound to the AD, which is fine. We had doing that with some of the previous ones already. And we had to define a certain set of software to be pushed onto all the Macs, so that people could do the functions they were supposed to do. On Windows, they used BitLocker for attached storage devices. We had to do similar things for Macs as well. So, now then, I've got it down here somewhere. We were given a spec which ran to about 22 sides of A4 about what it is we had to do and how they used to do it on the Windows, and basically we had to do that for the Macs. So there we go, a large user document. But I had to prune it down to Mac-only things, covering 7 main areas. There we go. There's going to be problems to be encountered on the way. Well, some of the restrictions imposed on Windows PCs didn't translate well to macOS, and we had to work out which ones did, and we had to justify those that we could ignore, had to ignore. But fortunately, none of those were game changers, and we were able to move on. At that point in the Mac community, the OU, most users were had local accounts, but to make them into AD accounts, we had to find a process to do that. Fortunately, there's plenty of things out there in the Mac admin community to show us how to make that work. We had to work out how to handle the encryption of attached storage devices. This took a lot of head scratching and searching, and a few proof of concepts, but we got there in the end. Windows PCs had what they called a core operating environment. We had to find the equivalent software for the Mac, things like Office, where that's fine, but other bits and pieces that would work on the Macs. One of the things that we used on the Macs were the VMs. We had to work out whether or not we would allow VMs on Macs. We couldn't necessarily guarantee that Windows VMs were always going to be up to date, and that really irked the security people. In the end, we decided to go against the use of VMs. We also had to look into file vault encryption for MacBooks, which we found a solution for that, which I'll touch on later. We ran a pilot program. We bought a set of 13 MacBook Pros. We set up the managed environment on those Macs, lent them out to some tame users to see if they could break them. There was then the iteration of, as we found out new things to do, to push those out, which way of testing software updates actually, and also to change the management environment as we came across new things to do. That was quite a labour-intensive process, despite the fact we only had 20 users who were our pilot. When we purchased the Jamp server, which we went for in the end, we migrated off from using the Apple Remote Desktop server to using Jamp, which, yeah, that was a good move. So, we went through the proof of concept, we tested everything, and then, where are we now? We then rolled out to all the Macs that were willing to partake of this management process. We had one poor guy, who was the chap who did the rollout. MacBooks would come to us, he would work on them during the day. For desktops, he'd go out in the evening to the various offices, do a sort of a department or a building at a time, and just work through those Macs one at a time when people had gone home. So how did we roll it out? We took one OU Mac. At this point, we installed or upgraded the OS to Yosemite. And then I built an installer, Mac management installer. The installer asks certain things. All our OU assets have a little barcode stick on them with the asset number on them. Macs are MC, L for laptop, D for desktop. You can guess what the PCs are called. So we ask for the asset number, the MCL number, that becomes the AD name for that computer. We then ask for the default user. Only the default user would become the admin user for that Mac. If we wanted to add other admin users for the Mac, we had a process for doing that via the Jamp server. But this is the one for the build. So having gained those two pieces of information, fired up the post-install script, and away it went. In the early days, most of the configuration bits I set up were things like using default write. As time went on, I got a little bit clever and I came across these things called configuration policies. So we are still slowly moving everything over to that side of things. But the post-install script ran to a few hundred lines as we went through all the stages to set the computer up, set the Mac up as it was decided it should be set up. Things like the desktop display, the wallpaper. We have a very nice OU blue. We did think about putting the logo on the wallpaper, but it didn't look quite right. The OU blue was what was used on PCs. We just moved it across. And I must say, it looks nicer on a Mac than it does on a PC. There you go. Just to say, we have used some of the configuration profiles there. We then defined the software, and we had the packages to install things like Office, Flash player. We still use Flash player, unfortunately. We had to install Silverlight because our IT help desk front end unfortunately used Silverlight. Fortunately, we're moving away from that, so we can ditch that very soon. Other things installed, well, only certain people use things like Adobe, so we didn't have to install that as part of the main kit. We also put on an OU toolbox folder down in the dock, and that contains various little kits. For a MacBook, which is being encrypted with FileVault, we set up a local user account which has the lovely full name of enter this Mac's passcode. So when you boot up your Mac, that's what appears on the screen. Little user, enter your Mac's passcode. We define a default password which is used on all the initial builds, so people knew what it was. This little tool there was the way in which people could change that passcode. It took a lot of head scratching that one, because if you just change a local user account's password, it doesn't change the password that's used on the FileVault. And so we had to work on a process of doing that. We also then stored it up on the Casper server. I did belt and braces. When I pushed it up on the Casper server, I then grabbed it back down again to make sure it had worked. And once it had passed all those tests, we were able to move on. On the PCs, we used a remote file server called UserData. Everyone on the PCs, they didn't store their files on the PC themselves. It was put up onto the file server. We decided we weren't going to do that with Macs. It was going to be a little bit too complicated. I am the only person. There was a team of about 6 doing the PCs. So we just gave them access to their own file server using a little application there which took their OU computer user account and automatically connected to the share on the file server for them. If you launch it twice, it disconnects, which is quite a nice thing. We have a little app which tells them basically a little bit about their own Mac. This is for when they're calling the help desk, and help desk say, you know, what's the configuration of your Mac? What model is it? What's the asset number? We also listed the various bits of software and the versions there for them as well. We have a little web link to the IT help desk, intranet site as well. And we also installed a Microsoft Remote Desktop file so they could access the OU RDS service, so they could run the Windows applications that they couldn't run on the Mac. As over 7,500 Windows machines are installed, there is some software which only runs on Windows, but some people need to access that. Things like access to the student data, which is only available via a Windows piece of software. So we needed to be able to give them access to a Windows server that they could access that. So that then stored away in the desktop. They could then access any of those tools quite easily. So that was the process. It took about 30 minutes back in those days because there was a lot of software to install. When this one guy was installing it, we provided all this information on a USB stick. He went around and plugged it into all the devices. Over the years, we've changed that, and it's now available on a file server. So once the machine is on the network, they can access all that stuff. It makes it easy for me because I don't have to then replicate new versions of the build and new versions of the software onto the USB stick and just drag it around from one place. touched on some of these already. Talked about how we deal with FileVault. Control of attached storage devices. We went in the end for endpoint protection from a firm called CoSys. They've been very good to us. We only allow the ability to write to attach storage devices, USB sticks, stuff via Thunderbolt or whatever, if that device has been encrypted using FileVault. That wasn't available from CoSys when we bought the software. They promised us they would modify their client to work, and they've done us proud. If you don't have a device that's encrypted with FileVault, it's just read-only. We do have the ability to have exemption from all that, so we still do an awful lot of work with the BBC. We need to be able to read stuff off the drives that come in from the BBC with our programs on. That's not a problem. But we then need to write some of those TV programs back into a format, send them back to either the BBC because we've modified things, or for a different format to go out to other countries like Hong Kong, for example, and places like that. So there are places with units within the OU where we have to make exemptions for them. Also things like people who go out to do video recording and want to be able to write back onto a memory card. That sort of exemption is required. As I said before, we don't allow VMs. Some people didn't like that, but I'll come on to that a bit later. There is one example, the exemption that we do allow for VMs, and that's for a small group of users who use the Vagrant environment for developing things. I created a little utility to switch off Wi-Fi when MacBooks and things like that are connected to the wide network. It's something that was available via on PCs. I know you can do it by using the endpoint protection software from CoSys. You probably can do it via Jamf as well. But when you then disconnected your Mac from the wide network, it didn't switch the Wi-Fi back on again. So my little utility did that for them. Tom was talking about mistakes beforehand. The mistake I had was when our Cisco AnyConnect client tried to fire up from home. It tried to switch network to a different state, which then my software kicked in and said, "Don't go back again." Poor people couldn't connect using VPN. Fortunately, I was able to make a very quick amendment to the utility, put it back up onto the Casper server. Our Casper server is accessible outside the OU, so within 15 minutes they were back onto the network quite quickly. We have at least one hidden admin account for use by our support guys. It's perhaps not necessary for them because as we connect down to the AD, we have a little AD group which has admin rights on those PCs anyway. But there are some things with when you add a group in using dsconfig, which I think sudo is not available to those people who are in that group. So they have that one account which should give them sudo access if that was really necessary. Ongoing support. We are a very, very small team. I am the developer. I designed and built the management environment. I also organise the deployment of any software and their updates, and also work out how to to push out the OS upgrades as well. I have 3 technicians. They're part of our desktop support team. I had 3 technicians for my use. One of those 3 left to go to another company. The second guy, who was actually the chap who did the initial rollout, now works for the team that I work in, and has only just become my sidekick. I'm known as Mac Man, he's Mac Boy. Fortunately, the team leader with desktop support has seen that he needs more people to be able to do Macs, and he's pushing people out on his other guys out onto the Apple technical course for them. So we are growing back up to, we're about up to 2.5 people who do Mac support, and hopefully at some point they get up to 5, and by that time things should be slightly easier for them. While I'm away at the conference here, my mailbox does fill up with queries, and they just have to wait until I get back. Software update, OS updates can be very tricky. The build environment didn't work straight away with El Capitan. But there were things Apple changed obviously with El Capitan. And it certainly doesn't work with Sierra. And I'm still working on that one. There's just one more bit I've got to fix, and we should be able to roll out. The El Capitan upgrade wasn't available until May this year. There was a lot of people who were belly aching, but they were very good. Obviously, new Macs, when they came out with El Capitan, they're coming out with Sierra now. I still have to touch them by hand just to do the last little bits of configuration to make sure they work. The main problem we've got is the use of iCloud. We don't want them to move their desktops and their documents fold up onto the iCloud. Obviously, the only way to do that at the moment, to start with, is to disable iCloud drive access. Hopefully, I think I've now found the way to just stop those 2 bits that we don't want to happen. See the modifications I've made to the build process. I've touched on some of those before. I'm trying to use more and more config profiles, so it's just easier to move things to set things up. I can now do remote installations, which is something I haven't been able to do before. And we used to give them options to pick which bits of software they wanted to install. No, I've done away with that. We now push out the whole lot. We are slowly rolling out the Office 2016. I have a little process also which pushes out not the latest version that Microsoft have developed. We always one step behind to give us a chance to make sure that nothing breaks the vital documents that are used. I've also created a little utility to wrap around the installation packages for the various apps that we'd like to have on our standard build. I could just push out the latest, the installation from the supplier, like the Flash install. I know with Casper you can say, just push it out if it is not the latest version. But what if someone is running a test of the next version? So I have a little routine within the wrapper which does a software version comparison and will not update if the software is already is at a newer version. Especially things like Office, where you perhaps on the inside of fast or slow tracks. So how do we cope with the naysayers? People who don't want to be managed. Well, I say those who refuse to join the party. These are what we call the autonomous Macs. We have because we have NAC control on our network, we shove them into a separate VLAN. They are outside of our core network. They don't have access to sensitive data and other services which we don't want them to touch on. We don't want them to infiltrate onto. As I said before, even autonomous machines have to have AV, and if they try to use VPN to get into the core network, if they're not running AV, they're still denied access. If you already have a managed Mac and you fill in the exemption policy form to be made yourselves autonomous, we wipe your Mac, which is sometimes a deterrent. Because there are bits and pieces we install which, well, it's going to take me a lot of time to get rid of everything. Obviously, if we use config profiles, I can just remove those, but there are other bits and pieces I'd have to get rid of. So we have to wipe them so they become autonomous and basically scratch them back to standard. One of the so the most popular exemption that people don't understand is that say, I want to know my machine has to be autonomous because I want to be able to install my own software. Well, we allow you to do that. You have admin rights, and they don't necessarily realise that. But then there are people who want to run VMs, for example, so we have to allow them. I've always been, well, I used to be in the work at the OU, I've always worked alongside academics, and so fortunately I'm able to go along and talk to them and allay some of their fears. But there are still some people who insist they have to do their own thing. You're not going to touch my Mac. It may belong to the Open University, but it's my Mac. How dare you do these things to it? So if they are autonomous, they are not supposed to get support from IT. But we're very nice people. We do try our best efforts for them. What about academic freedom? I know it's in the title, but that was a nice snappy thing that I have to get through somehow. Does central management restrict freedom? I don't think so, but then I'm not an academic. But if you have a MacBook and you don't allow us to encrypt it with File Vault, and then you lose that MacBook, which has happened a number of times, including one very, very senior member of the university staff, is your data safe? Person who that happened to, he was running an autonomous Mac. He's now got a managed Mac. That's the only way he could get a new one. He had to become managed. That's caused me a few headaches, but at least it tests my software to the extremes, and he's still managed, fortunately. Even today, he's got one of the new MacBooks, which I've got to touch when I get back to the office. As I mentioned before, we do have exemption requests, so they can be managed, and have some of the perhaps not that restrictive items exempted just for them. But they've got to go through a very rigorous process with the information security team to get past that stage. Your management policies restrict my development capabilities. That's because they never tried it. So I still have my fleet of 13 test Macs. I say, well, here's a managed Mac. Try and do the work you do with this. 9 times out of 10, they come back and say, yeah, okay, I'll go with it for the time being, but won't be tied to you if something fails. I hide at that point just in case. But freedom from management should not compromise security, which is why we have our separate VLAN. Security for computers at the OU, we try and keep it quite tight. We do apply for government grants for projects, and we have to abide by certain rules for all our machines so we can get those grants. And we have to prove to these people who come and do the assessments why it is that certain machines don't abide by those rules. But if you're one of those teams and you want to apply for the grants, then you have to have a managed machine. So that's one thing that brings them under our control. So, what's next? So we're up there. I'm trying to make the deployment of Office 2016 easier. So I'll be looking at setting up Microsoft Automatic Update cache server for that. We're still running an old version of the Jamf Pro server. Now I suppose we're running Casper server because we haven't got the upgraded to Jamf Pro. So that's one of the projects I've got to do in the summer. No, probably a bit early now. I need to finish the rollout for Sierra because people are starting to nag me. But as I said before, if they have a new Mac, they've got Sierra anyway, I just need to touch on it. At the moment, the deployment of OS upgrades and security patches is only available via self-service. Trouble is, I don't like, perhaps I'm just too kind, I don't like starting off an install of these things, which means that they're going to have to shut down their Macs, reboot and everything. It's just perhaps a bit laziness on my side, and I need to go through all the change management processes to say this is what I've got to do. If I put it onto self-service, I don't have to take into account things like RFCs. It's just there. I'm not touching people's Macs unless they want them to be touched. But if I can push out the updates, then that will make the information security people much happier because everyone will be on the latest versions. Perhaps when I fix Sierra, I'll do that. I like writing utilities. I'm a tinkerer by habit. And if the more utilities I write, the easier it makes my life because I can then give these utilities to the support guys and say, you can do my work for me. Here you go. The annoying thing with Safari updates is they are flagged to have a means to restart afterwards. And if you've got a security update and a Safari update, that's 2 restarts. If you put them on the self-service, there's 2 restarts to go through. So I'm now working out how ways to bundle up those sort of things, so that they don't click Safari and I'll have that and I'll have that. And one button to bring your Mac up to the latest versions of everything. That's one thing I'm working on for them. And that's roughly where we got to. That's me. This is me. Normally, I'm that guy there. With people at home, I'm the friendly device kiosk. I am around on Slack. There's Rich, there's pointed to also on LinkedIn. So, this is us. Any questions? You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Ian before a break? Can't see anyone. Got one at this case.
Hi. You mentioned struggling with the desktop and documents folder syncing with the iCloud
Yes.
and using profiles to limit that. But that limits, of course, all of iCloud Drive.
Indeed.
And then you mentioned you have an idea for a way to work that out without completely hammering the drive.
I'm working on it.
You're working on it, okay.
Yes. If I find it, I'll post it up.
Post it in Slack or,
Yes.
Okay. I'm very interested as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have currently, if somebody's using iCloud Drive, then the default installation is to switch off access to it. I then have to go along and open things up but close things down as well for them. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a way to just blank those off to start with. At least I couldn't find it, but I think that I now have a way of doing it, so I'm working on that one. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know.
Hi, thanks for your talk. You used the Cocosys endpoint protection. Can
Yes.
you just give some more details of the good and the bad parts with that?
The good and the bad points. We only use it for device control. We don't use document protection, anything like that. So it's purely for device control.
Were there any
Yeah, the one thing we have troubles with, if you have a new device, you can't write to it unless it's protected with file vault. Which means when you plug it in, you can't then encrypt it because you can't write to it. So we have to provide a sort of a single one-time access to that device to write. That's a bit of time-consuming work, but we can do that. Once the Cocosys software, you plug your device in, you can go to the management console, you can look at devices for that, attached devices for that computer, you highlight that one and you give it a one-time access just so they can write to it. That's about the only downside I can see to it at the moment. The management software does allow for exemptions based on user, based on computer, based on individual device class. So we have hardware encrypted devices so that people can transfer software files from Macs to PCs. So that that's as a standard open policy for those devices. And you can also restrict, as I say, just down to a single device. Say, yeah, you can write just to this one device. I haven't really found any downsides to it yet. It's a very nice piece of software, and it sits there and it gets itself updated quite well.
It's not actually so much a question, but in the spirit of academia, it's more of a collaborative comment, if you will.
Yes.
So I came into working in higher education where the Mac environment was not at all managed, and we've gone from that same journey from nothing to a Mac management solution. And it was just, in our own journey, I think what we found most important was actually making people realise that what I was out to achieve wasn't us versus them. It was me as a colleague trying to do my best to make their lives easier and not more difficult.
Yes.
It was making sure that they know on portable devices we say they've got to be encrypted. We tell them why we're encrypting it, and we don't make exceptions on portable devices being encrypted, for example, but we very much will explain to them the true reason why we're encrypting that. And actually one of the most important elements that we've had back from that is feedback from those end users, because I was new to Mac management. I had a lot of Mac experience, but in terms of MDM, before joining the university, actually the management of them was new, and actually that feedback from those academics proved invaluable, and we've shaped policies based on that. I guess the smallest of questions is, have you had feedback from those academics, and has that shaped your own development based on that feedback, or have you got your solution and that has been less shaped by that feedback, if that makes sense?
Yes. Feedback from the academics has perhaps changed some of the policies and made them less hard, less severe, let's put it like that. I was talking to an academic, giving him his new Mac last week, and he says, I like the fact that you manage our Macs. Yes, he's a Mac, real-time Mac user, but he doesn't want to have to fiddle with all the little bits and pieces to make it work as within the OU environment. He likes the fact that we are willing to do that for them. One of the big things for people is that previously there wasn't really Mac support within IT. Now if they have a problem with their Mac, we can get onto their Mac, we can solve their problem within minutes. Whereas before they came to IT would scratch their head and say, yeah, there's a guy over in the far corner there, he might be able to help you. We are now able to move support down to the main help desk, and that's helped a great deal. When I go out, this is my normal garb. Desktop support guys, they wear purple t-shirts. When I turn up at someone's desk, the neighbour to them who uses Windows, he says, what sort of level of support do you get? Your guy comes in a t-shirt and a shirt and tie. Only the best for Macs, you know.
Right, so I think we've just hit coffee time or whatever your fancy for. We've got half an hour before the next session starts. So thanks very much, Ian.